I arrived to work in, my office is in East Jerusalem. I thought I'm going to try and be fair to both sides, and I'm going to try and understand both sides. But within weeks, you see the constant injustice, and I cannot see both sides. I can only see one side, which is the Palestinian side. Now, if somebody had said that 2,000 years ago they lived in my country and they wanted my country back, and the Europeans and the Americans and the British gave my country to another group of people whose claim was 2,000 years old, you know, I would fight to keep my own land. And that's all the Palestinians are doing. They want a right of return to their homeland. But 5 million of them, and I'll tell you a little bit about what's happening to some of them outside of West Bank and Gaza, 5 million of them are now living as refugees outside of Palestine, which is now called Israel. But life goes on. This organisation, UNRWA, runs clinics. All of the staff are Palestinian. The doctors are some of the best doctors I've ever worked with in my career. I would give my left arm, as we say in England, to have some of these doctors come and work with us. They're all Palestinians. They work in clinics. They run all the primary care system. This is the education system. But they run a very, very good, probably the most efficient. We ought to go and see it though. Sorry, I should also introduce Professor Mervyn Morris, who's a friend of mine from Birmingham, who's over lecturing on a course at the university, and he thought he'd just come along and listen this morning. He hasn't worked in, you haven't worked in Gaza, Palestine?
I've been to Jerusalem.
Right. Okay, but so life goes on no matter what. And when I was crossing an Erez once, a soldier said to me, where do you stay? Do you live in slums in Gaza? I stay in the best hotel I have ever stayed in. I haven't got a photo of it. But Gaza is also, this could be the future. This could be Gaza, you know, when peace eventually comes. You know, Gaza is also beautiful. There's some beautiful homes, beautiful housing. Gaza is not all rubble. You know, Gazan people have beautiful homes like the rest of us. I mean, this is a street in Gaza that hasn't been destroyed. So most of Gaza is actually, it's a beautifully located strip of land that 1.5 million people have been locked up in. And I have huge issues with Israel, but I also have issues, big issues, with Egypt. Egypt are also responsible for the southern crossing from Gaza into Egypt. And if material and medicine and basic supplies and basic equipment for healthcare is not getting into Gaza, Egypt are also responsible for not letting that in. The Gazans, being incredibly resilient, have built huge tunnels, a whole range of tunnels. Israel comes and bombs them, and then they build them again. And I noticed when I was last, they brought in cars. So these tunnels aren't little, you know, little holes in the ground. So, but now I hear that Israel is building a kind of separation wall on their side. Now, if that happens, that would be a disaster. And I don't know where Egypt is coming from. I really don't. They have a solution to this. They could open that border completely and let people come and go, and let people go for treatment in Cairo hospitals, but they don't. I think they must be worried that Hamas will infiltrate or influence and radicalize their people. But Israel have blockaded Gaza, but Egypt are part of this, which is shameful. So Gaza this could be Gaza in the future. This could be a beautiful location on the Mediterranean. The Israelis have also, whatever industry is there, they've seemed to interfere with. This is a fishing fleet that hasn't sailed for years. Israel has implemented a 3-kilometre ban, so no boat can go out further than 3 kilometres. And at the moment, because the sewage system is so destroyed, there's huge amounts of sewage going into the coast. So eating fish could be a risk, you know, because they're not treating the sewage properly. And if you can only fish 3 kilometres offshore, you're going to have real problems. This is the area around, I went for a walk when I was last there. This is the area around the fishing port. Whatever was there before was being completely destroyed. So unemployment and underemployment and poverty and poor nutrition are massive issues in Gaza. I'll come to the West Bank briefly. But Gaza is facing severe hardships because they elected a group of people that nobody likes, or that Europe didn't like, or America didn't like, or certainly Israel didn't like. So Gaza has an election, they vote for a political party, Hamas, who get duly elected, and then the rest of the world don't like it, and then try and damage that government. I have said this time and time again. I was in Gaza, and Hamas, before they stood for election, was superb. They really did run the social networks and still do. People didn't starve, poor people who had no jobs didn't suffer. They have a very good social welfare system. And I've said to colleagues, if I had a vote and I was living in Gaza, I'd have voted for Hamas. They are very, very good, very dedicated, community-orientated, they're rooted in the community. You see the fatter people, I've got to be careful because I might be going back, but you see the fatter people going around in their Mercedes, you know, their fleets of Mercedes, and there's all sorts of gossip about, you know, some of them have nice homes in Paris, whereas people in Hamas are uncorruptible, so they're not corrupt. And everything they were doing, it seemed to me, everything that they were getting, they were giving to the people. And it is absolutely no surprise to me that they were elected. And they're good people. This is the only northern checkpoint in and out. This is on the road to Erez. And this has just been built, but you can see the distances. You know, in the distance you might just be able to see the wall. But old people who go for treatment in Israel, and that takes months, and many people will die before they get treatment. Many of them have to travel through this cage for miles. I mean, some years ago, I gave a talk in Gaza, and I was extremely critical of the Israeli blockade, particularly around essential medicines. What happened was 2 people got into a container that was empty. It was taken to Tel Aviv, and they went and blew themselves up. So Israel, being Israel, stopped everything, stopped all supplies coming. So I was really critical, and I have to walk now, but before I went by car. And there was a group of us, and we got there, got to the crossing, and after being really critical of Israel, and I'm deeply suspicious, they said, you can go in, you can go in, you can go in, you can go in. Because to go to West Bank, you have to go through Israel. You know, you have to go through Israel to get into Ramallah. And it came to me and they said, I've got traces of explosives on me. So I couldn't come in. They didn't ask me where I'd been, had I been handling explosives, they just said, you can't come in. So I was stuck